Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're here to talk about Mistborn Era 2, Book 2, Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. So as always, this is going to be spoiler full and it's going to be kind of a general discussion topic because I've already read these before and I have reviews of them up on the channel, but this is me revisiting them in order to prepare for the Lost Metal that's coming out next month. So with that being said, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, Shadows of Self. At the end of the Alloy of Law, I forgot to mention the culprit was Miles Hundred Lives. He was a twin-born, much like Wax and Wayne. Whereas Wax is what's known as a crasher, someone who can store their weight in iron, but he can push steel. So his allomantic ability is he's a coin shot, but his ferrochemical ability is that he can store his weight. So those two together makes him a twin born because now ferrochemists and allomancers like have interbred and like so more terrorists are out there, so the powers are kind of blending in interesting ways. So Wayne has the ability to store health in gold, but he also has the ability to use bend alloy and slow down time. But Miles Hundred Lives, who was a former lawman of the Roughs that Wayne and Wax actually knew, he is a double gold compounder. He is a gold allomancer and a gold ferrochemist. So he can both store health in his gold and burn the power of the gold to give him health. So he is effectively immortal. So by the time the Alloy of Law ends and they capture him and he's put to death, they have to basically strip him of all his metal mines to make sure he doesn't have any extra healing available. And then they put him in front of a firing squad, and it takes 5 or 6 volleys for them to actually kill him because he has some secret metal mine somewhere around. So essentially, they have to keep killing him in order for him to drain his reserves to make sure that the metal that he's either burning burns completely away or the reserves of health that he has are ran dry in order to finally actually kill him. And they do. And there are some mysteries that are teed up with him. He kind of mentions some offhanded stuff about Trail and stuff as he's dying. And we don't get really any answers of it. It's just a mystery that Brandon started to seed in Era 2 that I hope we get some explanation for in the Lost Metal. So, we jump into Shadows of Self, and Shadows of Self starts off with a flashback to when Wax met Leslie, his wife. And it's a really cool scene. I really like their dynamic. I like how they play off each other. It gives me a little bit of Mary Jane Watson and Spider-Man from the old 90s animated show, or early 2000s, I don't remember. But the animated show a little bit. Like, they have this great quippy kind of back and forth. They have this just great kind of rapport together, and like you get to learn who Wax was before he hit that catatonic depression, and he was just a way more fun, kind of jovial, way more arrogant, and way more kind of full of himself kind of person. But he had the skills and stuff to back it up a little bit, and he kind of was a decent little bullshitter. Like the way he killed someone that made him famous, and the way he killed him was like in the back and on the toilet or something. Leslie called it out immediately, but he is brass enough that he's not ashamed of it. He admitted it openly and even played along with it and added a joke. So their dynamic between each other, like that we see, is really, really cool. We can totally immediately see that they had a great relationship, and we can really feel for them together. So Brandon immediately puts you on their side of rooting for their relationship. So you kind of understand wow, even though Wax has accepted this arranged marriage situation, he knows that he's not really ever going to love Steris. He's not going to ever actually really get into it because he's still permanently, completely scarred by the loss of Leslie. So he has no, he basically doesn't assume any real proper romance or anything is going to develop with this woman. Which, of course, because it's being a book and stuff, he's wrong. So, after the events of Alloy of Law, Wax has basically been given a sort of constabulary status in the city. He's not technically a cop, he's not officially a member of the constabulary, but they realize that he was a lawman in the Roughs and he is very nosy, so he's going to get involved in stuff regardless if they want him to or not. So they basically give him special privileges to investigate and to help out law enforcement and stuff. So as a result, we start the book where he's off on the mission, like helping, like take down somebody and stuff. And they're like, "Aren't you supposed to be doing something?" Like, "Hey, my wife basically told me to come do it," because Steris, being as awesome as she is, she understands She is recognizing he is who he is, and she's not going to try to change him or anything. She's just going to add him to her contingencies and to her considerations, and she's just going to basically say, okay, now this is what we do. We have to allow, for Wax's weirdness and all this kind of stuff, and his being a lawman and everything. So it's just really accommodating and really cool because the way she sees reality, this kind of scenario just kind of makes sense. She just kind of folds it into her reality and understanding and just kind of goes with it. So she's just a really, really interesting character. And at the end of Alloy of Law, Wax basically told Marcy that their relationship potential is not going to happen. She's 20 years or so younger than him, and he is entirely too scarred. So without her ever actually explicitly telling him that she likes him, she gets completely shot down. At first, she kind of feels bad about it a little bit, but then she almost immediately gets over it because she realizes her crush was really just a crush of this character she was a fan of, really. Not really so much the man himself. And she changes what she was doing in school from going to be a lawyer and stuff to now she's basically a lieutenant in the constabulary. So she's a cop, she's a detective, she's out there doing all the stuff now. And she gets more confidence in this story to be right alongside Wax and Wayne. And the dynamic grows and evolves in such a way that I really, really enjoy because she really feels like a part of the crew. And we even get more Steris in this book. She's not just locked away. I mean, she kind of is locked away, but she's around a bit more. And we start to see her and Wax actually develop a true relationship situation where they are both actually getting to know each other by going to different parties and stuff like that. So he starts to recognize that she's not really a dull stick in the mud the way everybody perceives her to be. She's actually really interesting and into allomancy and that kind of stuff. And she has these interests that nobody would assume that she does. And she just kind of started to open up more to Wax and stuff. And it just kind of blossoms a little bit more interest in there for him. So it's really, really cool. In this story, we're also introduced to the Khandra again. We haven't seen many Khandra in Era 2. But in this one, we get introduced to one named Melan. And she is so, so cool. She's one of my favorite characters that Brandon has ever made. She is so interesting. She's really, really old. She's like one of the young ones from Era 1. So she's been around a long, long time. And she just knows society and everything so well that she just doesn't conform to any sort of normalcy or anything like that. So she's constantly blowing the minds of everyone, doing strange things, talking about her bag of bones and all this kind of stuff, and rearranging her flesh and stuff like that around her. But it's just a lot of fun. She's a great dynamic character, and I love the immediate chemistry she has with Wayne. And I really want Wayne to be super attached to her because he is attached to their friend Renette, who is this gun genius. She just makes amazing guns, and she's basically the sole innovator of the entire firearms industry on Scadrial. And she's amazing, and she's a lesbian. But Wayne is basically purposely ignoring that because of his crush on her, which pisses her off constantly, and it would anyone. He's constantly hitting on her and all this kind of stuff, and she forever rejects him. And we get the sense that in the first book, we got the sense that she vehemently rejected him long time ago, but he continuously ignores it. So she forever is threatening to kill him and stuff, even though she kind of takes it on the chin a little bit and knows that he's more or less harmful. So she doesn't really kill him. She's just really annoyed with him and stuff. So when Melan got introduced, I was like, yes, maybe we'll get over that, and Wayne won't be such a weirdo. He's such a creeper in a lot of ways and says some very off-color stuff, but it kind of works in this way where he's basically crushing on her hard, and she kind of is looking at him oh, you're an interesting little human and stuff. So it's we get this interesting development happening between Melan and Wayne, and I really ship them, and I really support it, and I want it to continue. So in this story, Wax and Wayne and Marcy basically have to deal with someone that they only know as Bleeder. At this point, Wayne has actually talking to Harmony. They've had an actual conversation. He's been able to actually speak to God, and it's really interesting because he's well, when you put on the ring, or the earring, what did you think was going to happen? He's I didn't really expect a direct straight up answer from God. So that's just so much fun. I thought that was so cool. But he basically tells him that the person that they're hunting, this murderer who's doing all these kind of crazy things around the town, they're a Khandra that has gone insane. One of their spikes have been removed, so therefore Harmony can't directly control them, and their mental faculties have been askewed because they need both of their blessings in order to remain sane. So she's out there doing all kinds of stuff, and Harmony basically tells Wax, I need you to kill her or get another spike in her so that I can control her and we can stop her from basically trying to collapse society. Because she believes everyone that is under the influence or believes Harmony to be a god is being manipulated and lied to, and basically is a puppet. And she wants to cut all the puppet strings by way of destroying the city because she's not entirely sane. So she's like exposing all these corrupt people and exposing different things, basically getting the city to a boiling point, similar to the way the crew did against the Lord Ruler in Era 1. So she's causing major issues, and of course our main characters are hot on her trail, and eventually they catch up to her. Also in the story, we get the return of Tensoon, and we get a little bit more information on the Khandra and who they become at this point in time, and it's really interesting. We don't get too much, but we get to see some. We get to see the comparison of changing speed. Like Tensoon is the fastest there's ever been, so he can swap bodies like in seconds versus like how long it takes Bleeder. It takes her a few minutes or so. So we get to learn a little bit more interesting things like that. But as the story continues going, we start to learn more about Bleeder, and we learn as the reader before Wax consciously realizes it, that Bleeder is actually Lessie. So apparently Wax's wife had been a Khandra the entire time that Harmony sent after him, or sent to him to protect him, because Harmony has had a plan for Wax probably since he was born. And he sent the Khandra to make sure that he was protected when he went out into the roughs, and they ended up falling in love and got together and stuff. But Harmony needed Wax to return to the city to go deal with some other stuff that's coming up. And he was trying to pressure him to go to the city, but Wax wouldn't do it because he loved being out in the roughs and he loved being with Lessie and stuff. So Harmony orchestrated the scenario that happened where Lessie gets killed. But since Lessie is a Khandra, she didn't actually get killed. I assume she was under the influence of Harmony and was made to play possum kind of thing. Or she was still on Harmony's side and just doing his bidding, even though she loved Wax at the time. I don't know. It's really interesting. But when we kind of find this out in the story, Wax immediately hits denial. He does not accept it at all and just continues on his mission, to the point where he has this specially made gun that's able to shoot a spike at her. And he shoots the spike at her, and Harmony starts to take control over her again. And as she's like losing control of herself, she starts to basically say stuff to Wax that ultimately confirmed to him that she is Lessie. And he starts to realize, like, holy crap, this is actually her. Like, this is, insane and everything. And he starts to have a freak out. But using the information that we learned previously, that the Khandra had figured out a way to kill themselves because immortality can be terrible. They figured out a way to kill themselves. Lessie starts to do this because she doesn't want to be under Harmony's control. She'd rather die than be a puppet. So she straight up kills herself, and now Wax has killed his wife twice, and it's all because of the influences of God. And it was a heart-shattering ending. Like, the first time I read Era 2, I didn't really enjoy it. I dismissed it as Westerns, and I don't really care about Westerns and stuff. But this time around, getting to that ending, hitting the realization of who Bleeder was and how it hits Wax, I was bawling. Like, I was in actual tears. That stuff hit me so hard. And the thing that really hit me was, at the end, after everything happens, after he had to kill her and all that stuff, and just everything kind of calms down, and he just tries to go back to society, and they're at this party thing because they have to, go back to noble society and stuff. And everyone's like trying to give him these terrible little platitudes and stuff, and like talk to him and tell him to buck up and stuff. And Marcy is almost like, get over it, because she was like, clearly it was a Khandra and it was all a lie, but it was for the greater good because it came from God or something like that. And like, he was getting no good advice. But Steris just came up to him basically at the end and just sat with him. She didn't say anything. She didn't give him any kind of platitudes or anything. She just held his hand and basically allowed him to break down. And he breaks down and just weeps on her shoulder. And it's the most amazing scene ever. Like, I'm almost choked up thinking about it. It hits so hard because it was exactly what he needed, and it was so perfectly done. And at that moment, because initially I was rooting for Marcy to get with Wax, but when that part happened, I was like, no. Like, Steris is probably the most brilliant, perfect person in the world, and perfect for him. Like, I love her so much after that point. She officially became, well, my favorite emotional character. Melan is probably my favorite character in general, but at that point, Steris became my favorite emotional character. And that part, to this day, it still just, like, sits with me, and I think it always will. So another great example of some really good writing from Brandon Sanderson. So in this story, we learn a lot more about the overall setup that's going on. Like Wax is really a pawn of Harmony. Harmony knows something is going on because the nature of the powers that he holds, it gives him future sight. So something is happening, and he has to prepare somebody that can be more influential because the nature of his powers kind of cause him to be stuck, and he can't really do a lot of things, like because the powers are opposing, so he ends up kind of neutral. So he has to craft a weapon. So that's Wax. So the things he has to put Wax through and the things that he has foreseen that Wax can actually handle are so terrible and so painful in the meantime. And it's like, how could you do this to somebody? How could you do this to a worshiper? And then it's like, I kind of get it because Sazed, the man, died. Harmony, the god, has to do these other things. And Harmony has been God for 300 years at this point, and it's probably just had to erode some of that basic humanity that Sazed had, and the nature of the intents of the shards that he holds. Like, it probably also has an influence. So it's like you're mad at Sazed, you're kind of like, man, that's terrible, but at the same time, you're like, I completely understand, and it's such a cool dynamic to be left with. So he just kind of left at the end of this book. I basically immediately had to go into Bands of Mourning because the way it ends, as devastating as it is for Wax, it's like you just have to know what happens next, because that kind of just rode hard and put up wet kind of thing that he just went through, just like, wow, the most strung out character in the Cosmere as a result of this. This is the most interesting and painful use of the fridging the girlfriend, killing the wife trope, because Brandon did it twice, and he kind of did it and then he undid it and then did it again, and it's just like, wow. But then it's also like he blamed it all on Harmony. So it's like, wow, just the way it was done is so much better. I can't, like, I knew initially when I first read it, this one and Bands I enjoyed more than Alloy, but now it's like, I'm kind of half mind blown. I really don't understand how I didn't really enjoy it the first time around, because I'm still just struck by this ending. So yeah, that's enough rambling about the ending and the rest of Shadows of Self. I really enjoyed this story. Each one of them are quite simple. The stories ultimately end up being just one mission. It's not like mystery on top of mystery on top of mystery that leads to this, to that, to that. It's more like there is a scenario that exists. Wax and crew finds out about it, and then they immediately go deal with it, and it's just like a domino effect. Everything kind of tumbles out until the ending, but the ending always opens up more questions and gives you more answers for the greater overall stuff that Brandon is trying to explain for Era 2. But Bands is where it really gets, like, you start to really understand the greater vision of Era 2, which gets me really hyped for Lost Metal. So next time on the channel, we're going to talk about Bands of Mourning and the greater world building that Brandon has been doing and setting up. And then we're probably going to speculate on Lost Metal. So, because I think Lost Metal comes out mid-November. So we should definitely have some time to do something like that. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And leave me a comment down there in the comment section. What was your favorite part of Shadows of Self? How do you feel about this story? How do you feel about Era 2 as compared to Era 1? Let me know about that down there. And I will talk to you all next time. Peace.